Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Mario, and I got soul. Y'all keep it locked right here.
Absolutely. Let's get started. I just want to bring it back to Dancing Shadows, your last album. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it then, but, it's been out for over a year now, so just reflecting back on that project and you now as a businessman, as, releasing it independently, what was your biggest takeaway from the release of that project?
So my biggest takeaway from it was that I love making an independent project. I loved the process of moving to London and working with Jake Gossman and creating something in a different way than I ever have. I never really worked with one producer or executive producer on a project, and I never worked in one specific space. So being in London, I think influenced a lot of the sound and the vibe of the album, and I think it was different from my other projects because it was less commercial. It was a more, introspective type of project. So for me, it was just fun to create in that space and knowing what that feels like and having the freedom to go back and do that as an independent artist is great.
Right. And I got to tell you, when I first listened to the project, and I'm pretty sure a lot of fans will probably agree with me, when I first listened to that project, I didn't quite get it because, like you mentioned, it wasn't as commercialized as some of your previous work, but when I really sat with it and it really grew on me and I understood what you were trying to do, was that expected for you on your end, that some people would have to sit with it and live with it for a while?
Definitely was expected, because I think it's such I have so many different layers to me as a person and as an artist that it's unless you're there during the process, it's such a large leap from what they're used to. So yeah, I expected it, and I knew that it would be a project that I never expected it to be a breakout project. I just knew it would be something that certain people would gravitate towards. But for me, it was more of a ode to just real music, raw music, and people that I grew up listening to. So fans that like that type of music would be able to relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, once I got to sit with it for a while, ended up loving a lot of the records, really enjoyed the growth that I saw on that project. And then, just to fast forward a little bit, you went on the Millennium Tour, which was such a huge moment for R&B. But I think it was also important for you as well because, in the early stages of your career, as you were working, it was constant work. But with this Millennium Tour, I think probably a good way for you to reflect back to see that the work that you've already put in, right?
I think the Millennium Tour was just a nostalgic experience for both the fans and artists who participate in that show. Me specifically, I felt really excited to introduce those hits and records that people were familiar with in a new way, in a way that my fans never experienced it before as an artist, and to be able to mean the words differently to show that I'm a better performer than I was when I first came out. And just to kind of marry all the worlds. I think that performance, being a performer is one of the biggest parts of the artistry. I think that if you're not a performer, it's something that I feel takes away from the fans' experience, as an artist. So that was the main thing for me, was getting out there and putting on the best show that I could so that when I put out this new music that fans will look forward to seeing live again.
Right. So, you mentioned Dancing Shadows. That was sort of a project, it was for the fans, but a lot of it was just for yourself, for, just to showcase the different layers of yourself. Now that you've been on this Millennium Tour and you've performed both new songs as well as the older songs, and you've seen the reaction from the fans to both, what's the takeaway moving forward? What kind of music do you plan on creating moving forward?
I just continue to plan. I plan on continuing to show fans that they can do, and show people that you can be whatever you want. I don't really put myself in a box as a writer, as an artist, as a performer. I just create what I feel. This next project is definitely a more mainstream project. No specific sound for the actual project. It's just me going to the studio and working with some of my friends and making good music. Right now is a time where I feel you should just do whatever it is you love, and if you're happy with it and something that you want to share with the world, just share it. Music is still the greatest medium for having a voice and speaking on things, whether it be certain subjects or whether it just be I want to try something new sonically. So I think that that's the message we should be sending out to people: ownership and staying creative and staying fresh.
Right. And as an independent label owner now, you know, you own your masters. Are you still trying to push For Radial at this point in your career? Because from Dancing Shadows, it didn't seem like you really tried to push the radio.
Yeah, no. I mean, radio isn't really, for that particular project, no, I wasn't a part of the plan. You know, it was just a vibe, you know. So I think some albums, some artists you listen to for the vibe, and some artists are branded to be, you know, label priority type of artists because they focus more on commercial radio records. I'm somewhere in the middle. You know, I have two sides to me. I have the more vibey, I just want to make a super vibey-ass album artist, you know, whereas everything is more selfish when it comes to the lyrics, and it's just more about what I'm feeling that day and, like, what message I'm trying to get across. And then there's the more mainstream side of me that understands what my fans want, and that has undoubtedly one of the best voices in the industry that pretty much nobody can fuck with, in my opinion. If I was on the outside looking and listening to my own shit, it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think there's just a lot of layers to me, and that's what makes me different as an artist, you know. And it's exciting because it's the where we are in the space we're in, like digitally, it allows me to play all of those parts, you know, and really to stretch across all fronts of the creative platforms.
Right. And, you know, I just saw this tweet come up probably about an hour ago, 15 years ago. The number one song on Billboard was Let Me Love You, which is your record, obviously. And, you know, I want to talk about the new cover that you have. But first, kind of take me back to that time in your life. You know, you had dropped your first album, which did relatively well. Mm-hmm. This one comes out, it goes number one. Did you get a chance to enjoy the success of that? Because, like I mentioned earlier, in your 20s or even early teens, you're just working.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed traveling. I went on tour with Destiny's Child. You know, it was like my second tour after the Scream tour. It was my second big tour, so I was really introduced to the world on such a big platform. And as a team, I mean, all you can do is take it in, and, you know, just really, you know, learn as much as you can, fast as you can, and try not to lose yourself in the process of it all, you know. Try not to lose yourself in the process of finding yourself, if that makes any sense. I think that was the biggest thing for me back then. But I had a lot of fun on tour. You know, I think I got to live out a lot of grown men's dreams at the age of 18, 17, 15. Like, you know, I was living like a grown man. I was, you know, traveling, meeting all these different people, and, you know, having a good time on the road. So it was the time of a lifetime, you know. And then going back in the studio to record "Let Me Love You," that was my second album. So I definitely felt pressure, you know, to have more success than my first album. But I was also in the space of like, okay, I didn't really understand what that meant because I'd never been there before. I didn't understand what having a number one record was. You know, I think Just a Friend made it top 5, but I hadn't had a number one yet. Yep. So you know, it wasn't like I was trying to beat that, at least. You know what I'm saying? I was just trying to make sure that I had a successful second project, and, you know, the stars aligned the way they did, and that song to this day is still, you know, as special as it was back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a generation of listeners, that's their song. So it's amazing that you have that in your discography. But let's fast forward to 2020. You're set to release a 2020 version of Let Me Love You. What is that all about?
Yes. Yeah, so basically, you know, it's more about what I've been able to build, you know, obviously with Sands and with Scott Storch and with Neo, what we've been able to build with this record over the year. But it's also about owning, you know, more of what that experience is. You know, owning my masters of this version is a big statement for me as an artist who has, you know, made a lot of sacrifices to have the success that I've had. I've had a lot of great success with major labels, but now owning my own label, to have this under my imprint, to me is a personal goal that I wanted to achieve, but I had to wait for a certain amount of time, and I had to wait till, you know, legally I was able to do it. So now is the time, and I personally feel like creatively, I've had a chance to like live that record through in real time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When I first recorded at 18, I didn't know shit about love. You know what I'm saying? Now
right.
It's like I've been on both sides of it. I've been the guy who has been in love, you know, and I've also been the guy who fucked up and probably had his girl taken by somebody who's better than him for her. You know what I'm saying? At that time, because I wasn't doing the right shit. So I've been on both sides of the record, and I can really, you know, appreciate it in a different way. And I think performing it now and as an adult, I gave it a certain edge and a certain level of authenticity and truth that I don't think the original had.
Right. Cool. And then I just saw a video clip that you posted earlier on Instagram. You're actually in the studio with Scott Storch recording this song. How important was it to bring Scott back in the mix for this? Oh
man, I mean, Scott is he's the Einstein of this whole thing. You know, sonically, I think that his education of music. You know, I look at Scott like a classical. If I was blind and I heard him playing, I would never thought he played on all of the classic hip hop records he played on. I would never thought he played on Let Me Love. I would think he was a classical piano player. I would think he was like world renowned, like, you know, traveling the world playing their operas and shit, because he's just that talented. But he can also do urban. He can also do hip hop. He can also do pop. So, you know, I think he added all those elements to Let Me Love You, which makes it such a cut through record. You know, it cuts through anything. When it comes on, it's just nostalgic and it lives in its own space. So Scott, to me, represents that bridge that gaps, you know, the bridge that gaps all. I'm sorry, the bridge that connects all of the underlining and overlining parts of the creative process sonically.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, a lot of fans, after they saw that clip, they hit us up because they knew we were about to interview you, and they asked, is Mario going to be doing more records with Scott? Because there's a lot of fans out there that still want to hear that project that you and Scott did a couple years ago that never came out. Yeah,
I know. You know, that, and, hey, me and Scott, we have records that are in the vault, but we definitely plan on getting back in and creating some more. So, you know, stay tuned. You know, we have a lifetime full of creating to do. So, yeah, I definitely see us getting back in soon.
Nice. And, you know, just a few more questions for you here. A lot of our fans wanted to hear, because, you know, we obviously know about the Let Me Love You, and the How Do I Breathe, but they really like these album cuts from you. So just give me your thoughts or whatever you remember about recording these songs right here. The first one, you performed it on the Millennium Tour, Never. What do you remember about that one?
I remember being in Atlanta, Georgia, and when I first heard the song, I first heard the track, I thought it was too empty. You know what I'm saying? Because I was so used to recording like up-tempo records and like records with a little more instrumentation to them, and I was like, this record feels so empty. It's nothing in it. Just you know, Rhodes piano and like a hi-hat and a kick, and I was outside of my comfort zone, you know, when I recorded the record. It was so raw. And then when I finished it, it ended up being a fan favorite, you know, and every time I perform it, fans are like singing every single word. You just never know, man, you know. So I would say that record proves to me that being outside of your comfort zone can be a great thing.
Absolutely. And then the next record I have off the Turning Point album, and this is one that a lot of artists actually love, that I've seen. They post it on their Instagrams all the time, Like Me Real Hard.
Yeah, Like Me Real Hard. You know, Like Me Real Hard was done in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is, like, known for, just, like, the producers that come out of there are normally, like, super talented, real R&B hits. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear that record, you're listening to, like, I think Carvin and Ivan, who were responsible for the likes of all of Music Soul Child big hits. Yep. And, you know, they were just like, yo, let's just focus on your gift of singing. Like let's just write the most beautiful song, but that's also generationally balanced. And let's just keep it, you know, super raw. Again, outside of my comfort zone, straight raw, just all vocal, you know, straightforward lyrics. Not a lot of hiding behind the track. which probably is what made that record for a lot of people, you know, special. And I remember actually, I think I had just come off tour, and I was living in Philadelphia at the time. And I remember playing it for my aunt, who's not alive today, and she was like, because I was making the album, you know, countdown, like how many songs you got to put on the album, and that song was about to not make it, and it was because of her that I put it on the project. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Made the album. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then just two more for you. This one's off the Go album. This is actually probably my favorite Mario song. It's Kryptonite. I'm actually mad that never officially came out as a single.
I know, it's crazy. And that's probably one of my favorite records, like in terms of that circle of recording music. Because I felt like it was nothing like that out, and I had never did a record like that before. I just remember being in the studio in Atlanta working on that record. Oak and Natazio, who I wrote the record with, produced the record with. You know, they are super talented writers and producers. Kryptonite is kind of like R&B on steroids. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like when you hear it, it's like R&B. If R&B was on steroids, it would be Kryptonite, because it was such a strong vocal, vocal position for me as an artist. But lyrically, it also just had all of the character to create a space that wasn't there before. You know, for me as an artist, for R&B, on a production tip, I don't think that it was colorful enough, but it was also dark enough to make it stand out and have its own space. I could say so much about that record, but that's probably one of my favorite records I've ever done.
No, absolutely. And then the last one I have for you, this is the one that Babyface wrote, I Choose You, off the DNA album.
Yeah. Yes, sir. What can I say, man? I mean, Babyface, I remember going to the studio with him, and I was like, listen, man, like, what is the secret to writing, you know, and to making hits? And I remember him telling me, like, you know, he's like, humans, we make things difficult. You know, we complicate everything. And he was like, if there was one place that I promised myself I would never complicate things, and it's in writing. So he's like, he focused on simplifying the record as much as he can, so that anyone could sing it, anyone could remember it, anyone could remember the melody. And it stuck with me. I haven't been able to apply it as good as him, obviously, but it's definitely something that I still think about to this day when I'm writing music.
Nice. And I don't want to forget about this one, because this is the one that I think stood out the most on your latest album, which was Dancing Shadows. That record right there is crazy.
Wow. Thank you. Easily one of my favorite records off of Dancing Shadows. Easily. Lyrically, sonically, I mean, that whole album was created from scratch. Every song, there was no records that were handed to me, you know. And that one in particular was, I think, maybe the third record I recorded for the project. The producer, he's this young kid from Poland. We come from two completely different sides of the world, but our creative connection was just instant. You know, I instantly understood his language as a producer. Dance in Shadows, the song, is a very special song to me. It has so many different meanings behind it, but the main meaning is that, you know, when you meet somebody who mirrors you in a lot of ways, it also brings up a lot of many parts of yourself that you don't want to look at, you know, and that's where the beauty is. Dance in Shadows represents kind of like the darker side of each other, finding the balance, if you will.
Nice. You definitely delivered on that record as well as the album.
Thank you.
Mario, that's all that I've got for you. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Just that I got new music coming soon, and a new tour as well, and the tune back in Empire end of March.